Hola pinche losers, hola, bienvenidos a mi canal. If you're new to my channel, hola, como tu ta? And if you've been here before, hola, como tu ta? So I am finally sitting down to talk about my birth story. Finally. I just finished getting my hair done and my ends trimmed. Yeah, it's giving stiff wear, period. My hair feels so good, so soft, that it actually looks really shiny and really healthy. So yeah, but yeah, that's a little side note for today. Excuse my forehead, it is metro booming, okay? But yeah, I have my Onyansa shirt on. I didn't get dressed for this video because I figured it was a very just kind of chill video of me just talking about my birth story. If the camera shakes and moves, it's because my cat has decided to join us for today's festivities, and he is sitting right here on top of my feet, right underneath my tripod. So yeah, okay, so let's just start from the beginning. So honestly, I feel like I was in labor for like 5 days, and what I mean by that is I was feeling contractions from like, I gave birth on a Wednesday. I was feeling contractions since that last Thursday. Okay, I think that Thursday my mucus plug came out. But when your mucus plug comes out, that doesn't always mean it's time to give birth. I don't really remember what it means, but it's not necessarily an indication of, oh, that my water broke, it's time to give birth. So a mucus plug came out, called the doctor's office, and they were like, do you have, you know, they were just running through the list of things that it could be just to see if I was in labor. I wasn't in labor. So yeah, that was that. I was having contractions like for days. So Friday, my contractions I felt were, I think, about like 5 to 10 minutes apart, which I felt like were pretty close. So I called the doctor to see, like, is this Braxton Hicks? Are these real? What's going on? Got checked out. I was only 1 centimeter dilated, so they're like, you know, it's not time for you to give birth and your water did not break. Cool, went home. Went back, I think like Saturday or Sunday night. Again, I was only 1 centimeter dilated. And they were just like, it's just not time, sweetheart. Like, it's not time to give birth. I'm like, oh, my contractions are getting closer and closer together. Like, I'm in a lot of pain. At this point, I was in a lot of pain. I could not sleep because I was feeling contractions, but like nothing was happening. I was only 1 centimeter dilated. But I was like, I'm feeling these contractions. Like, what the hell? What's happening? So yeah, my contractions were close together, but there was no water breaking. There was none of that. So they were like, there's no way she's in labor. I went again to the hospital, I think, was it Monday? Early Monday morning? It might have been early Monday or early Tuesday morning. I went. And again, same thing. My contractions were close together. I was like, there's no way you mean to tell me it's not time. Like, I'm in so much pain. So my doctor came and was like, listen, you've already been here 3 times this weekend. So here's what we're gonna do. We can induce you to get you out of your misery, to get you out of pain, or you can wait it out, see if he comes out. And if he doesn't, you're gonna end up having to get induced anyways. So I was freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do? Should I get induced? Do I want this to happen naturally? I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. But after much consideration and consulting with my mom, the nurses, and other people, I decided it was the best decision to get induced because I was in so much pain. And that was the 3rd time at that point that I had been to the hospital for contractions and labor pain, and I was like, I can't go another day. I had an appointment, I think that Thursday, to check the progress of like my cervix to see if I'm dilated, and I was like, I can't wait all the way to Thursday. Like, I will not make it another 24 hours. I was like, I can't even make it another hour. So they induced me. The nurse was like, just so you know, like, if you get induced, like, there's no turning back. That means you have to have that baby. And if I remember correctly, I think she told me that you have like 24 to 40 hours to deliver this baby. So I was like, okay, that's a new rule or something. But my mom was giving birth to my brother. She was in labor for like 2.5, 3 days. She was like, yeah, we don't let that type of stuff happen anymore. Like, you need to deliver this baby or we're gonna have to cut him out. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, she didn't really say we had to have to cut him out, but she was just kind of like, you gotta do it or we have to do it a different way. I remember one of the nurses was like, if you were in real labor, you wouldn't be able to talk. And I'm like, I don't know, I just felt like she didn't say it in a snooty way. She wasn't rude, but I just felt like that was so uncalled for in a way. I don't know, it just pissed me off. And I think it was because I was in pain. I was like, okay, whatever. Well, what I'm telling you right now is that I'm in a lot of freaking pain. Get this freaking monster out of me. Like, I'm over this. Just do one of these, okay? And help me get this fucking crotch demon out, okay? Excuse my language, but that's how I felt. So yeah, then after a while, like right after she said that, I think like an hour later, I was in so much pain that I could not talk. I literally could not talk. And she was like, oh shit. I'm like, yeah. They had to check me, which if you guys did not know, when they check your cervix, they literally stick their hand up there, and it's not necessarily painful, but it's not comfortable either. So considering I was having contractions, it was very painful and very, 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 very uncomfortable. But they have to do it. And I knew that I wanted the epidural, but they told me that, you know, we usually don't administer an epidural until you are at least like 4 to 5 centimeters. I was like, holy shit, I'm not gonna make it till then, you know? I used the birthing ball. I walked around a little bit, tried everything to kind of distract myself from the pain. None of it necessarily really worked. The ball was helping after a certain point, but then after that, the contractions, it just wasn't helping. So I remember they had to check me and I couldn't do it. I was in so much pain. My contractions were like every minute. I'm not even joking. And at that point, I think I was finally dilated to 2 to 3 centimeters. And they wanted to check me again to see if it was time to give me the epidural. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't have you guys check. I'm dying. Like, I can't. I was gonna let them do it in between contractions, but they were not letting up. I was like, I can't even recover from the last one I just had. Like, it was horrible. My doctor, I heard him go, just give her the epidural, just give her the epidural. So the anesthesiologist came in, gave me the epidural. You have to be very still when you're getting an epidural. It's not a shot, it's a whole like, it's a needle that goes in your back to numb you, and then they put a tube. It's literally a tiny, tiny, super, super skinny tube that goes in your back. So the anesthesiologist gave me that. He was also checking up on me every so often, just to make sure I wasn't having any adverse reactions or whatever to the epidural, just to make sure everything was copacetic. So if you do get an epidural, you will see the anesthesiologist a couple of times because they have to make sure that everything is okay. Then they had to, because I only had like what I said, like 24 to 40 hours to give birth, they gave me Pitocin. And Pitocin basically makes contractions harder and stronger and basically just speeds up the labor process. Because after the epidural and then after a few hours, I still really wasn't dilating as much and there wasn't much happening. So they gave me Pitocin to speed things up. I think they had to give it to me at least 2 or 3 times. I think after a few hours, I dilated to 6 centimeters. He was able to check me, and at that point the epidural kicked in, so when he checked me I didn't feel it. Like, I felt the doctor going in there, but I didn't feel it, you know, meaning like it wasn't like painful per se. So he did that, and he was like, okay, you're 6 centimeters, we're getting somewhere, you know, and they just kept monitoring me, nurses coming in and out, kept monitoring the baby. After I had the epidural, I could not eat or drink anything. That's another thing. If you have a natural birth, you can eat or drink, but if you get epidural, you cannot. And obviously you can't get off the bed because you can't feel your legs. So it was crazy because my son's, his dad's mom, so his paternal grandmother, she was bringing us McDonald's, but it came a little too late because I had already gotten the epidural, so I couldn't even enjoy McDonald's. But yeah, it is what it is. I was only able to have ice chips, so I had ice chips, and I only had a few of them, if I'm being honest. I didn't eat that many. You can't eat or drink when you have the epidural, so I obviously did not do that. Couldn't get off the bed. Then I eventually got to 10 centimeters. A few more hours later, he checked me. I think they had to give Pitocin again, like I said, to kind of help speed things along, because I just don't think things were moving fast enough. And like I said, I only had a certain amount of time they were gonna allow me to be in labor. So they, you know, kept administering it. Anesthesiologist again kept checking on me. I did end up running a fever while I was pregnant. Well, I was pregnant, but while I was in labor, and I threw up I think 6 or 7 times, I counted. It was probably from my body being under a lot of stress, the fever, and obviously not being able to eat or drink anything. So I remember waking up and I was like, oh my God, I'm sweating my ASS off, like I'm so hot. And I go, Mom, is it hot in here? She goes, no, it's actually pretty cold in here. And she came and she like, I said, can you, like, she felt my head and she was like, oh, her face went, but she was trying not to show me, and she just was kind of like, oh, you're having a fever. Now me, when I get fevers, since I was a little girl, I don't just get regular fevers. I get high fevers. I get fevers that are like 103, 104 to the point where I need to go to the hospital. So luckily it's kind of calmed down since I've gotten older, but when I get sick, but especially when I get fevers, it's bad because it doesn't happen very often. So when it does, it's like really, really bad. So they were checking on me. The anesthesiologist came in again. I guess he was checking too to make sure that this wasn't because of the epidural and just make sure that I'm alive and doing okay. Ice chips to cool me down. Like I said, I did throw up. But it is what it is. Miserable at that point. I was hot, I was weak, I was tired. It just, even though I wasn't feeling any pain, I still was like physically so exhausted. But I ended up being okay. But they were concerned once he was born if he was gonna have an infection. So if I passed an infection on to him, which really wouldn't have been my fault. But he ended up being fine. They did the tests that they needed to do. They took blood samples and he was okay. So that's the good part. But I did end up having a fever, which sucked ass. So eventually I got to 10 centimeters and he was like, okay, do you feel like you need to push? I was like, no, I feel just normal. And he was like, okay, well, let me know when you feel like you need to push. And everybody was like, you'll know when you need to push. You'll literally feel like you need to push. The nurse described it as, she said, you will know because it'll feel like you have to take a caca. She said, you'll know because it'll feel like you have to take a shit. And that's exactly what it feels like. If you guys want to know what it feels like you have to take a caca mierda, pero from the front. Not from your culito, from your chocha. That's what it felt like. And so, yeah, I was like, okay, you know, it's not time. And then I don't even know, I wasn't really timing anything. You guys were probably like, what time did this happen? And after how many hours? I don't know. I was laying on the bed dying. So I just really don't know what time all of these things were happening. And I want to say, based on the time that he was born, I want to say probably around 4:40-ish a.m. I remember I was laying on my left side, I'll never forget. And I went to turn to the right side. And I was like, oh. I felt like I had to take a shit. So I called my mom. She was on the other side and I went, Mom, and she perked up so fast. She goes, yes. And I was like, I feel like something's gonna come out. Like, I think I have to push. I think it's time. And she's like, oh. And she got up so fast and grabbed the nurses and the doctor and was like, I think it's time for her to push. She says she feels like she has shit, so it's time for her to push. And then the nurses and the doctor came in. I don't know how many pushes I did, but I was not pushing very long at all. I think it was about like 5 or so pushes, maybe 5 minutes of pushing. It was not long, like, at all. And I just remember I couldn't look at anybody. Like, my baby daddy was like, look at me. I could not do it. My mom was holding one leg. My baby daddy was like up here trying to cheer me on. The doctor was obviously down there. The other nurse was on the left side of me holding my other leg. And I just was like this, staring at the ceiling. And when he told me to push, because obviously I couldn't feel the contractions myself. So when he saw on the screen that there was one coming up, he said, okay, I need you to push. And then stop, and then push, and then, so he was just cheering me on. Everybody was cheering me on. He was telling me when to go, and everybody's like, that's it, he's almost here. You know, it's happening. And I missed a part. Before I even started pushing, I had like obviously opened my legs and my mom goes, oh, I see his hair. And I was like, oh, sugar. Like, that means I really, like, that's why I couldn't look at anybody. Like, I was staring at the ceiling, I kid you not, because I had to psych myself like into, okay, bitch, you need to push this baby out. Like, it's time, you cannot go back now. You got this. So I really, like, my eyes were like this the whole time. I had to really focus and like psych myself into it. It was also, in a weird way, an out-of-body experience because I just couldn't believe that I was doing this. But once my mom said, oh my God, I see his hair, I was like, wow, like, I'm really about to do this. And I felt his head, like, I felt it. Pushing, because they gave me this little button that I could press to administer, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my cat away from the camera, to administer more of the epidural. I don't know if that's a new thing, but basically they gave me like a little, almost like an IV bag type of thing. And sorry, cat fur. And they gave me a button to press where if I felt like the epidural was wearing off, I could press it to administer more, but I had to press it. Nobody else could press it for me. My mom couldn't, baby daddy couldn't, doctor couldn't. Like, I had to administer it to myself, and I did. I cranked that sucker up. When I knew it was time to push, I was like, I pushed, I took a few pushes, and lo and behold, I felt this instant relief once he came out. It literally feels like you're taking a poop. So you know when your poop passes out? Yeah, that's what it felt like. And I was like, whew, I just felt this big relief. And I remember looking at him, I saw like a little glimpse of him and I went, my baby, and my head went back and I was like, because I was so like relieved, I was like, oh, like, you know, when you're like, oh. So I did one of those and I heard him cry, and they had him kind of sort of on my tummy area. I don't even know how the afterbirth came out. It just apparently came out, and I caught a glimpse of my placenta, just a glimpse of it. But anyways, he came out and I heard him crying, and everybody was crying. I was crying, my mom was crying, baby daddy was crying. It was such a beautiful moment, and they cleaned him off. They had him on my stomach a little bit, cleaned him off, and then they put him on my chest for us to do, you know, chest to chest time. And what's it called, skin to skin. And y'all, he came out hungry. He was like, he was munching on his fingers. Child, he came out hungry. After that was it. He came out. I felt when he came out, I felt when I felt like I had to push. I felt pain the last like 2 pushes that I made. And I had like this big cramp on like, I think the right side of my stomach, which probably was a contraction. But other than that, I didn't feel anything like pain wise. I just felt the sensation of him coming out, but it wasn't like painful, you know? It just felt like something was coming out. And yeah, after a few pushes, he came out and he was born minutes to 5 a.m. and that was that. And I just remember being so relieved, so tired, so thirsty, so hungry, just everything. I think one of the first things when they were like, are you okay? Do you need anything? I was like, water, give me water. I was like, I need something to drink. And yeah, I was in labor, I think for a total of 14 hours, which really isn't that bad. So yeah, that was it. I had a black nurse, which I really, really liked. There was a host of other nurses. They were all great, but I had a black nurse and she was like, hopefully I'm here when you actually give birth. And she was, thank goodness. It was really nice seeing a woman of color be there and listen to my concerns and help me out. And yeah, it was amazing. Another thing I forgot to tell you guys was, I forgot what it was called, but I had a catheter like in my urethra, which is where you pee out of. Obviously, because I had an epidural, I didn't have any control over any of my bowel movements. So if I peed, if I pooped, it was just gonna happen. I didn't have any control over that. So I had to pee and they had to collect it in a bag. Obviously, I did not know when I was peeing. I did not know, it just would come out. So that's another thing, TMI, but hey, it's the truth. The things I wanted to let you guys know about after you give birth, and I'm probably gonna forget some things, but I did write them down so that I didn't forget. Please move from my camera. He has an obsession with my camera. Doctors will monitor how you pee and if you poop after you give birth. Before you leave the hospital, they really want you to poop, whether that's C-section or vaginal birth. I think I stayed in the hospital for 24 hours, like overnight. I guess a total of 2 days if you count the labor portion. But basically, after giving birth, I only stayed for a day. I think we were released like 6 o'clock that next night on like Thursday night. He was born on a Wednesday, so yeah. They do monitor how you pee, and they do make sure you're not bleeding too harshly and you're not clotting too bad, or else they won't let you leave. Basically, they just want to make sure that everything's copacetic before you go home. And they always advise you, anything changes, anything feels weird, you give us a call, you come back, you let us know. But yeah, they were like pushing on my stomach to see, like to feel like my uterus, to also see how much blood was coming out. They monitor that. Yeah. And like I said, you have to poop. You have to have a bowel movement, but not just pee, it has to be poop. I also had the lactation consultant there. She came a few times, which was really, really nice. They always encourage to breastfeed, and then if you end up not continuing with it, it's fine, but they do come in there to try to show you how to, which I thought was really nice. I had this older lady, I think her name was Kathleen, I'll never forget, and she was just so sweet. And lastly, the baby was with me for the most part as I requested, except for when he came out. Like I said, they wanted to make sure he didn't have an infection. So he had to go get his tests done, and they had to give him like, I think it's a vitamin K shot and some other shots that you get like right upon birth. So they took him away for that as well. They took him away for a first little bath, and they also took him away for the circumcision. But other than that, he was in the room with me the entire time, which was really nice, which is what I requested. He was just like in his little basket. And he was just and still is the most beautiful thing ever. Birth is still the craziest thing that I've ever experienced in my entire life. It was painful, it was rough, but it was worth it. And I have the most beautiful, happiest, cutest little baby in the whole wide world. And yeah, I hope I didn't really forget anything. I pretty much got everything that was in my notes. I wrote this down so that way I can stay in order. Also, another thing, they do show you how to take care of yourself postpartum. So they show you how to use the witch hazel, the Tux wipes, the perineal bottle. They do all of that. They show you how to use the ice packs. They do all of that. They show you how to navigate that, which is really nice. They also gave me some to take home. You know, you sign the birth certificate and all those different things. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. Sorry if I was still all over the place, but I was trying to remember everything. Yeah, that is it. That was my birth story. If you have any other questions, if you feel like there's anything I missed that you want to know, let me know down below. I'll be happy to answer them for you. And I gotta go actually pick up my child right now from my mom's house. And yeah, I will see you guys later en el próximo. Why am I doing this? I will see you guys later en el próximo video. Besitos a todos. Adiós, gente.